Welcome to Wait, Ask Me Another. While answers and advice often appear as the best solutions to ease our suffering, curiosity is truly the cure for all things that ail us. It is the one remedy others will openly accept, and once they start to experience its impact, they will stop you and request, "Wait, ask me another."
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wait, Ask Me Another. This, of course, is the podcast where Jenny and myself, I'm Terza, we talk about all of those questions that people always think are rhetorical, but we actually ask them and dive into them because there's a lot of learning to be had there for you and for us, we've found out as we've been
Oh,
doing
yeah.
this podcast, right? So we hope that at the end of this, you will be so excited by what you've learned that you'll be thinking about this all day and that you'll come back so we can ask us, hey, wait, ask me another. The question that we have for you today is, how present is your imposter? How present is your imposter? Jenny, you want to take it away?
Oh, yes. I think so many times we convince ourselves that, well, I got rid of that dude a long time ago. And so maybe we don't recognize when the imposter starts to nudge its way into a situation, because what we did instead is we brought along or developed a shadow side.
Right, right. We hear a lot of people talk about imposter syndrome and to the good and the detriment, right? So sometimes it's like we're talking about it and it's just something that we're kind of massaging over and over and over again. But the beautiful thing is that so many people now know about imposter syndrome, understand more about that icky feeling of not feeling good enough or able to cut it in a particular situation. But what do we do when we actually address it? We say, you know what, that's not true. I can do this. Most of us think that that means that we've fixed our imposter syndrome. We might have, but what we did accidentally is we invited imposter's little best friend along called the shadow self. And that shadow self basically says, this is how I'm going to fix this so that I can still, like, I don't need the discomfort, the animosity that comes with imposter syndrome, but I'm still going to retain all of my old stories. I'm just going to present them in a different way. And so Jenny and I, normally we will like read a story or talk about a story, but we figured that we would just share our stories this time along to help you understand this a little better. And I can start with mine, Jay. I have had an imposter syndrome for the longest time uh, I that keeps me from playing big in the world because I don't want people to think that I'm like above them or that I think that I'm above them. Even
Mhm.
though I'm stuck with this vocabulary from childhood, that I'm above them. And the story that's behind that is literally I've had people tell me, like, you kind of use too many big words. Um, and again, being me from childhood, I can even remember being back to like 14 years old where it was just like I didn't fit anywhere because I was like, I was too smart. You're the too smart kid, you know? So the message that I received was, you think you're better than us. And I didn't want to portray that message at all. So what I created was this kind of version of myself that would be self-deprecating, would be humorous, whatever it took to be like, I'm smart, but I'm not too smart.
I'm
Okay?
still approachable.
I'm still approachable. Here's the problem with that. I never really fully embraced my own self and the fact that, yeah, like I'm really, really smart. Okay, let's all deal with that. What I created was this shadow self that I would then portray to the world to protect those stories about myself because I accepted them as true.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that happens all the time, is that our shadow self is there to say, to prove the opposite, and or to prove otherwise. And so maybe it's not the opposite, because it's not like you were trying to prove that you were dumb.
No,
Hey,
but
they
to prove a different story that I thought was more palatable to other people.
yes, yes. And And I think that happens all the time. And so it's almost like the shadow self becomes the line leader. So imposter's still there.
Hmm.
And imposter sits and really is, as soon as an opportunity comes along, it will signal shadow self to step in front and to be the one to, you got to take care of this.
Right. You got
And
to uphold the rep.
yes, so do your stuff. So
Right.
yeah, and I do the same stupid things over and over again, and I can see myself doing them. And it goes back to a story that I joke about that I think isn't, that wasn't a big deal, but clearly it is, because I have behaviors that I can be like, that I do that, I do that, I do that. Um, Based on something that happened many years ago. I was asked to speak at a foundation about coaching. Part of the foundation stood up as well and looks at me and then looks over at the rest of the board. And keep in mind, I was a lot younger and I didn't have the crazy hair I have today. So, but I, I, as I'm standing there, he looks at everybody and then looks back at me and says, "You need to sit down. You're too young, too pretty, and have absolutely no life experience to contribute to others." And I think at that moment, I, and nobody stood up and said, "We invited her. We want to hear what she has to say."
Right.
Everybody kept quiet. I looked around the room and it was clear that they were giving the message that you probably should just sit
Wow. Wow. What part of your persona did you feel like you created in that moment?
down. I think I created, and I see it over and over again, is this piece of proving that I can contribute to people's lives. And what I do is I over research everything. I overproduce. I over like, because I want to prove that I have worth. And so every time I give a talk or I uh, have an opportunity to write a new course, I spend hours in this place of this better be good.
Right. Right. And I think that's the challenge of the shadow self is that imposter syndrome, when it is over, like when it's super present, it makes us fearful and combative, right? It's a combative relationship with imposter syndrome. So it feels easier to attack it. Shadow is sneakier in that it feels like you are upholding something good, right? I need to prove, I need to make sure that people know that I've got my ducks in a row. But it's doing it still out of a sense of fear that somehow I will be found out, that
Right.
somehow they'll know that these two parts of me don't match. And I love that you shared that piece about the fact that it will make you over research everything, because we see this. We don't necessarily know what people's shadow side or shadow self is. We don't know what their narrative is, but we see the effects of it.
Hmm. Yeah. I, so even the other day, Terza, I was listening to a coaching session, and the person being coached, she somewhere along the way got the message that she wasn't valued. And so when she gets into tight situations at work,
Mhm.
that imposter starts showing up of, I need to prove something, or I'm not going to, I'm not going to produce what they need. I'm not a good leader, whatever the story is. And she listed all kinds of things. Like she had her whole list.
Yeah.
And but what she does instead is that she has family members that are in need and they have not asked for her help. yet she will drop her work for the sake of helping them. And what she said or expressed in that is that I feel really good about myself when I can
Mhm.
go help them.
Right. And the funny thing is, since they didn't ask for it, they might not even want the help. So now you feel really good, but you've also not created another good situation. You possibly even created a difficult situation in another realm of your life.
Right, because are you helping them create a shadow self?
Hmm.
It's that you're giving a message that you don't believe they can do this on their own.
Yes, yes. I love teasing out the relationship between imposter and shadow because then you can actually see it at work in your own life. I'll
Mm.
give a quick example. Literally last week, I'm standing in front of a group of executives and I'm working with another individual. And I know because of my own personal health, some medication that I had been taking, I feel off, right? I'm not on my best game that day. I don't think anybody else in the room can notice it, but I notice it. So my counterpart launches into the presentation and is gung ho and really good about it. And there was this weird thought that popped up in my brain, way in the back. I mean, nosebleeds back, that was just like, she's saying all of the things. They're not going to, they're going to think that I don't have anything to contribute. Now we have co created this entire workshop. I
Mhm.
absolutely have things to contribute. But in that moment, literally, I felt myself almost interrupt my colleague just to say words to make sure that they know that I'm here too.
Yeah. Well,
And I
and
caught it. I caught it though. I held it back. I was very proud of myself.
way to go.
Yeah.
But I think that that is a great place to start. If you are really trying to figure out what is the maybe the triggers, but also the interplay between imposter and shadow, is start observing things. And in that case, when you feel off,
Hmm.
uh, if I feel like one of mine is if I feel rushed or that piece of judged, like people are expecting this, not sure I'm going to give this, then I notice that it's very easy for me first to feel the imposter, but then for the shadow to show up and say, well, you're going to have to work extra hard. You're going to have to do all these things. And then I can't seem to, if I don't recognize it, I I stall out. And then I actually produce the fear that I do look like I don't have everything together. I do look frazzled or whatever I'm trying to avoid.
Right. Right. The other thing I love that part about observation. And the other thing that I think goes with that is check for the messages. Imposter and shadow have shared language. So
Mm,
there are themes and there are common messages. So for me, like I said, way back it was crystal clear. It popped in like, they're not going to think I have anything to contribute. It was like a sentence
mhm.
spoken from imposter to shadow in that moment. Another one that I've said for myself in taking a look at whether or not I wanted to uh, become a leader in an organization. Oh, I don't want that. I don't really want that.
Mhm.
I don't want those opportunities. Did I investigate the opportunity? No. Did I really understand what comes with the responsibilities with it? No. I just immediately went to this message from imposter to shadow. I don't really want.
Yeah.
So check out once you do that observation. Where am I? When am I? What's happening here? Do I not feel my best? Do I not feel like up to the task today? Like what's happening here with my body, with my mind? I think the next thing that you can easily identify is the messages because they bounce back and forth like coded language between those two.
Yeah, if I were to list them out, so I think one, you said these, you rattled them off pretty fast,
Mhm.
is the the body. What is my body saying right now? That's such an easy one, is checking in. But then what is my mind saying? Also paying attention to the setting.
Mm,
It's that in certain settings, do these two start to show up? And what can you do to manipulate the setting so that you can ease that or feel like you have more control in it? Because I know that in certain settings, if I feel like they're, and these are stupid things too, Terza, is if it's super cold in a room and I have to give a presentation, I, because it impacts how I feel, then I overthink things.
okay.
And so if I'm uncomfortable, if a room is set up a certain way, if it's in rows, I feel like I can't control the room as much as if there's more of a circle. Like it's weird. Also certain people.
Yes, that is very true.
If there are certain people in the room, I will purposely go sit by other people, or even sometimes I've even brought people in and I'm like, you don't have to say anything, but every once in a while, can I look at you and can you just like smile at me?
Right, right. Well, people do that a lot with power plays, right? In
Mhm.
corporate culture. If someone's in a room, who does everyone sit by? Who are their comfort people that they sit with? Where do they position themselves in a room? All of that has a lot to do with that interplay between imposter and shadow. And it's a very physical manifestation of it. And not that you need to start pointing this out for other people or trying to figure it out for other people. The power is in understanding it for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, and getting really clear on that, and what will influence you to slide into that, but also what will influence you to get out of it. And and there's two things that I do, and I would love to hear, Terza, what you do too. But I know that if I have already watched myself overdo something, like over prepare, overthink, I and I'm afraid that that's going to carry over into a presentation or the situation, I will wear tennis shoes
Okay.
to that situation as a reminder of chill out. You
Okay.
know this, you need to just be you and not prove something here.
Mhm. Mhm.
My other way is that I is to joke about something, and while it may seem like that is a cover up, it resets me.
Okay.
Is that I find humor a way to be like, no, you are not a stiff individual. Find the humor in the situation because it will calibrate you back to the person that you are.
Yeah. I've been with you, so I recognize both of those. The one that came to mind immediately is I have to hyper focus on the humanity of the people in the room,
Mm.
right? Because remember, mine is all about not trying to act like you're too smart, making sure that you fit, making sure that I begin to hyper focus on myself.
Mhm.
And I have to hyper focus on the humanity of the people in the room, not their role, their position, their title, their pay grade. This is a person. What does this person need from me? Because then it doesn't matter. Like, then I get to use my words to
Right.
convey meaning and to ask questions and to do things that help the individual. And so if I do need to use less big words, I'm more natural with it because I'm like, okay, let me use a story. Let me use an illustration. Let's try metaphor. But then those things become tools for me again. They don't become hindrances.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so recently I was doing a program and one of the speakers in the program said something that I love. And so I use it now lately. I was never one of those people who was nervous about speaking and so had to see everybody in their underwear. That was never my shtick. But this speaker talked about imagining everyone as their childhood self. So literally in my mind, I see all these people in the room and they're all in their like suits, but they're all 5.
Nice.
And it just helps me realize that, they're coming with all their own stuff
Hmm.
to the table and trying to figure it out. And if you can imagine a 5-year-old in a floppy suit coat with their pen or their smartphone, all of a sudden it just makes it like, okay, let's just talk.
Yeah. And, that 5-year-old self is just curious.
Right. Just wants to be invited to the
Mhm.
party,
Exactly.
to play. So, and my job is to make a safe play space, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
One of the things that has also helped, we do a lot of just interesting entrees or moments into ways to think about things at learning journeys. And we've often used music.
Mm.
And we started down this road, Jenny, actually talking about like, well, how do I break up with my imposter? And how do I break
Yeah.
up with my shadow self?
And I think you really do have to break up because you've been dating for quite some time. You can't
Yes,
just you can't just ghost them.
super
And-
long relationship.
yes. And they know you quite well. They know where you hang out. They know where that there has to
Right?
be something that gives the message clearly.
Yes. And they know when to hop onto your phone, right? Hop onto slide into your DMs.
Hmm.
It'll be like the Instagram, and then all of a sudden, bam, there goes shadow self. So yes, I think you're right. We have to purposefully and intentionally break up with imposter and with shadow, which means a couple things. You have to grieve the breakup,
Mm.
right? You're not going to get over it in just a day and just be like, I broke up with my shadow self. Bye, Felicia. No, it takes a little while to actually like grieve that self because it was designed to protect you.
Hmm.
It was designed to kind of give you a buffer against the world. So to just rip it off, I mean, it's really raw and open, just like the loss of a really good friend, right? Um, so grieve the loss and then find ways to kind of memorialize the loss and be like, okay, I'm going to actually now put this aside. So what we came up with was, since we're talking about breakups, was your breakup playlist.
Yes. Yes. So what's on yours, Terza?
Yes. So when I first have whatever the shadow side is that I identify, and I'm like, you are not good for me. I have to break up with you. I would love to say that I go to some like women's empowerment ballad. I do not. I go to George Michael and I whip out Careless Whisper, and I'm
Right.
never gonna dance again. Guilty feet have got no rhythm. And I wail. I'm just like, because I want it to work.
Hmm.
And I feel bad giving you up because you should be doing something for me, but you're not.
Nice.
And then after my grieving process, I get a little angry. And so Spice Girls, Tell Me What You Want, What You Really, Really Want is what plays in my head. And that's what gets me to move from the shadow to the story I actually want to tell, to the person I actually want to be in the world, so that I can grab onto something much better than whatever the shadow side was trying to keep alive.
Yeah, I love that. And one of my, as you were talking, I was thinking about, of all the songs, I think the song Brandy comes to mind. Is that, here's, it starts out, Brandy, you're a fine girl. And the pathetic thing about it is that it describes this amazing gal, but she's holding on to something that is never going to happen. She's always in wait. And then she goes home at night by herself all the time. And I think that is what happens when my shadow and my imposter show up, is I'm by myself. I'm waiting for something to happen, but it doesn't happen the way that I anticipated. And so then I'm walking alone again.
Yeah.
And I think that piece of grieving it is that, yeah, that's let it go. But I
Right.
have to, like, and while I like your song about, the wailing and stuff, like I probably have a list so long of the really, really sappy, gross 60s and 70s music that would cause me to go to tears every single time. But this, even though this is kind of an upbeat song, the words are really sad. And
Yeah.
that it does still trigger an emotion to be like, just let it go. uh, and then I go to Train, 50 Ways to Say Goodbye, while he's having a hard time with the breakup. I love in all of his lyrics all these ways that he's going to tell his buddies how this woman just like died this way and then this way and then this way. And I think I need that strong reminder of, I get to choose the story, and I get to choose the story I tell myself and I tell the world every single time. That I need something very dramatic to be like, no, woman, recalibrate.
Right. Yeah. That is awesome. I love your songs. For you, listener, viewer, it is a fun thing to think of, like, what's my breakup song with my shadow side? So I love this whole conversation because, again, when you ask the rhetorical, but then you actually dare to answer it, I believe you find the actual powerful answers. Imposter syndrome does not roll by itself. It has got a buddy. And
Mhm.
between the two of them, if you can figure out what they're saying to each other and decide for self, I want to break up with this, just so much power to be able to own your own story, to be
Mm.
able to sing a different tune in the world. You don't have to know what's on the other side of doing that. What's on the other side of doing that will show up for you. And then
Exactly.
we'll be here with the podcast, with classes through learning journeys, with whatever you need to be able to walk from that place forward into your future. But we just wanted to come alongside and say, like, hey, if you haven't checked it out, these two roll together. You probably had drinks with them and you never even noticed.
Yeah. And so we will leave you with the question of, how present and active is your imposter and your shadow? And at what point are you going to let them both know, we got to stop meeting like this?